John, heaven, hell, these are strong parts of Christian tradition, but I find that many Christian theologians today are kind of embarrassed to talk about these. Are you embarrassed?
No, not at all.
Well, let me hear it.
Clearly, they're strong parts of Christian tradition, but equally clearly, for the first millennia and a half, if not longer, the imagery which was used for that was drawn from all sorts of mythologies, from Greek mythology and other places, especially the depiction of Hades and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting. The last couple of centuries, Christians have tended to emphasize more the kind of the personal dimension of it. And not just Christians, someone like Sartre, hell is other people, which Dostoevsky would turn around and say, well, hell is actually the inability to love other people. So there's kind of different ways of nuancing it in like that. I think the way I would want to respond to it would be that heaven and hell is as real as God himself is. And the question really comes down to how are you going to respond to God? Yeah.
So however I respond, am I going to go to a literal heaven or a literal hell after I die, either immediately or at some future time? Let's not avoid this fundamental question. It's either, it's going to happen or not happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's metaphor, maybe it's beautiful literature.
I think
what Dostoevsky says is not relevant to what's going to happen to me.
Right. The only absolute certainty in our life is that we're going to die.
Agree there.
Absolutely, right. There's no way around that one.
We start on bedrock together.
Okay, we're going to die. And so in a very real sense, the only question we each have to address is, how am I going to die? Everything else will come and go. Yeah, what I do with my riches, what happens with my family, what happens with my career, everything else will come and go. The only question which I'm going to have to face is, how am I going to die? It's the only unavoidable question. And in a sense, the whole thing depends on how I respond to that question. Okay, I would suggest that the heart of the Christian revelation is that God shows us, that Christ shows us what it is like to be God in the way that he dies for our sake, and that the response to that is to lead a sacrificial life for others.
Look, I understand all of that.
But the way I'm going to develop that is to say, if I learn how to die to myself before my actual physical death, when I come to my physical death, I'll be able to say, into thy hands I commend my spirit, and die peacefully.
Fine. So you die peacefully. What happens then?
If I don't do that, if in fact my heart is really with my books, my bicycle, my family, my public image, then I could be absolutely sure that my physical death would be separation from that.
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be painful. If that's what I love, that death would be painful. And I would suggest that the imagery that you get in the Christian tradition which clearly is drawn from pagan mythology and very clearly, is a way of describing the pain of that.
Is that pain prior to death or something that happens after death?
Both. I
can follow you up until death. It's either psychology or reality. I want to know what's happening afterwards. We got to deal with this.
Okay. Nobody's been there and come back to tell us.
Okay. So wait a minute. The Christian revelation claims to be able to tell us. I want to know if you believe that or not. That's all.
The Christian revelation, the heart of the Christian revelation, is that Christ is the image of God, and we conform ourselves to Him if we want to be like that. Okay.
Okay. So there's a lot of other things.
And the determining moment of that is our physical death.
Okay.
Am I going to say, into thy hands I commend my spirit? Or am I going to say, no, give me more time, I want to enjoy my bicycle more?
I'm going to I like my bicycle, I want more time, I hit death.
So it's going to be painful.
It's going to be painful. What happens to me afterwards?
You're going to live with that pain.
No, I'm already dead.
You're going to continue with that pain.
I'm going to continue. Am I going to have a conscious life?
I would say yes.
And I'd have a conscious life, and I maintain that pain. I'd be alive forever with the pain of not having my bicycle.
How that pain then works, we can't answer. Now, there will be Christians down the ages who will use the image of purgatory. Yeah. That pain is purgative in order to allow you to detach yourself from what you had held on to.
Right. So I'd have a period of time to get rid of my bicycle and maybe to
get rid of your attachment to your bicycle, whatever it might be. Which is, in a sense, what I'm trying to do right now.
Right.
I still like my bicycle, but I'm learning not to attach myself to it.
Okay.
So, it's going to happen either in this life or after.
Right. Okay. So that's the purgatory piece. But there is a consciousness after death,
And if
and it depends on what I did prior is what my state is
now,
at that
now
time.
the difficulty, of course, is that we habituate ourselves, and our habits become almost like second nature. Yeah. So the more we habituate ourselves to live egocentrically,
Sure.
or whatever, however you want to describe it, the harder it will be to overcome that.
Even in afterlife.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
These habits are not, and I think that's why you get the imagery of burning. To burn away these habits. Which
So I'll be there for a while.
Well, I'm not going to answer for you, but I think that's what's going on with that imagery and that language, which is clearly drawn from all sorts of other places. It's a way of expanding upon that central facet, that central revelation about that. The question is, how are we going to respond? How are we going to respond? And if we respond in a particular way now, we learn to overcome all of these things in order to be able to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Into thy hands I commend my spirit. If we don't, if we continue to build up our habituated patterns of existence now, we will still have to deal with them hereafter.